Welcome to QueerEfficiency, where I help fellow productivity nerds solve tiny problems. Today's tiny problem: eliminating little friction points in my fitness tracker with some quality of life improvements. I'm Anthony Wagner, a professional problem solver and productivity nerd, and I'm excited to make my gym experience just a little bit better. Let's get started. Alrighty, last week we covered my fitness tracker and I went through the ins and outs of how that database in Notion is set up. During that video, I had some ideas about how to improve the tracker, some quality of life improvements, and over the last week, I've implemented those. So today I'm going to share with you what those improvements are. I've got 3 key things for you today. The first is buttons that will allow you to quickly increase and decrease the weight on whatever exercise you're doing, which is a great time saver when you're actually in the gym doing this on mobile. The second is a couple new properties that allow you to see how many days it's been since you last updated the weight on a particular exercise. And then finally, I have a quick tweak that allows you to toggle on or off exercises. Before you were able to just hit today, but now it allows you to toggle it back off if you inadvertently hit that button. Okay, let's jump into Notion. And first up is these increase and decrease buttons. This is the idea that I was debating about during the last video. I had an idea that I really would love to be able to quickly increase and decrease the weights on my exercise by just hitting a button. The problem was, the way I had it structured before, I used this weights database, and the databases were configured with a relation that allowed you to pull in the weight for that particular exercise. That was good, and typically that's how I would advocate building a database, but in this case, Notion has a little quirk in its automations, at least not that I've found. Notion doesn't make it super easy to change the linked record in a relation using an automation. So in other words, hitting the up button or the plus button to increase the weight, it made it difficult to switch the weights when it was linked into this related database. So the first thing that I did was I converted all of my weights that were in this database into a simple single select type property. So if I come here and hit edit, it'll pop up. And then you can see here that the type is select. And what I've done is I added all the weights, and yes, of course, I colored them so that they show in rainbow order, because why would I not? I added all the weights that my gym offers. I actually think I may have some extras. I'm not sure that my gym offers these subdivided weights at these higher levels. And it only goes up to 70. My gym has up to 130. I am not there yet, but I will gladly add them if/when I get there. So it has all the weights that I could possibly be using in the foreseeable future. And then I added my count items for body weight exercises. Those are ones where I'm not actually using a dumbbell. So I have that configured. And what I'm going to do, because this is my actual real data, I'm just going to add a new exercise and I'll just call it, oops, see, I forget this every time. Remember from last video that I have to edit using this duplicated property because this is here to make it show better on mobile. So I'm going to add a test item, and recall that this property just duplicates whatever is shown here. But on mobile, it creates a more streamlined look. So I've added this test weight, and now what I need to do is I need to identify my starting weight. Let's say it's 20. So if I press this, you'll notice that now it's cycling through the weights, and I can do the same thing going down, which is pretty cool. That is a big improvement because now I can increase my weight very easily while I'm sitting at the gym. I also decided to keep this plus column, and I used this before as an indicator for when I think it might be about time to increase the weight. An additional change that I made when I did this formula for the increase and decrease, which I'll open and show you in just a second. When I hit this, if the checkbox is clicked, when I choose increase weight, it will automatically clear that checkbox for the future. And so that's just a little time saver so I don't have to remember to uncheck it. And it keeps my confidence level high that whenever these are checked, it does mean I need to increase, not that I forgot to do it the last time. So let's open this up and take a look at the automation. Now, the automation is not my favorite way of doing this, but because the weights aren't exactly numeric, like they don't go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that would have been very easy to increment and decrement using a more automated method. I theoretically could do it by plus and minus 2.5 because all the weights are plus and minus 2.5, but I don't actually think my gym has these, and I just inserted these half weights for the upper levels. I think that they jump to 5-pound increments at the higher levels. The way that this is coded, you could do this a few different ways. I could change it to say just add or subtract 2.5 and leave all those weights there, no big deal. That's probably a slightly better way of doing it, but This way worked when I was first building it. I just was testing to see how well it would work. And so basically all this automation does is it looks through the entire list and says, if this page's weight property is equal to 60, say, increase it to 62.5. I think if I were to make another improvement on this, I would just do it plus or minus 2.5. And then that would mean that the property would, all it would have to say is this page.weight equals this page.weight plus 2.5. And that would be the whole formula. It would be a lot simpler. So I may end up changing it to that, but this is the way I initially built it just in testing because I did it with just one of them. I did with two and then said, okay, AI, I think it was ChatGPT, expand this to the rest and just use that. So no big deal. So that's the formula here. Then something we'll come back to is this date triggered bit. That's the next overall optimization I made. But then also you'll see here, it sets the checkbox back to empty. And that's the whole formula. That's how that works. And so now I can increase and then decrease. I will say that on the decrease side, I don't do anything else except the actual property where it's changing the values. That's because it doesn't really make sense to me, first of all, to clear this, and then we'll come back to this weight date. It's not often that I need to decrease. That's mostly there in case I happen to hit this too many times and I want to quickly lower it. I didn't want to edit the weight date or the weight days properties. In the future, we'll see if that makes sense, but for right now, it didn't feel like it made sense. I really only need to track those next properties when you increase the weight to the next level. All right, that's a great transition into the next item, which is the weight date and the weight days properties that I added. So what this does, you may have noticed it when I first created this test exercise. Let's actually create another one. Always forget, I can't edit there. It's such a habit. So we'll say test 2 just as something else. I'm gonna enter a weight. And then what this does is when I increase the weight, it inserts the current date in this column. Back on my real values, what this does is it allows me to see what date I last increased the weight. And then this other property here is doing a quick calculation against what was the date here subtracted from today's date. So how many days have elapsed since I last updated this field? In other words, how long have I been on the current weight? This gives me a quick bird's eye view to say, it's only been 8 days. Maybe that's not long enough. It's only been about a week. But if it gets up to 30, 40 days on the same weight, that's a decent indicator that maybe it's time to increase the weight. Now, something else I could do if I wanted to get really, really fancy with this, I use external tools that help add additional powerful automations to Notion. So I use make.com, and I've recently just started using Relay app. But I just started today testing to see if I could scan through a database and do things based on that scan. What I could definitely do is tell this if this column goes over a certain value. So if it scans the database that morning and sees any that are tagged with 30 or greater or whatever number, I could get a task in Todoist, which is where I manage some of my tasks, telling me, oh, you might want to update this, or add a task to my tasks manager in Notion, or send me some sort of a text alert. There's a whole bunch of things that I could do that definitely work like that. Additionally, I could even just create a view that has all of my weights in one place and then has this filtered. So if I turn this on and said add filter, weight days is greater than 30. I'm not going to do it because then it'll edit this database, but I could turn that on and then just toggle over to that periodically, and that would achieve the same thing. So there's lots of things I could do if I wanted to get a really focused view on how long my weights have been active, and then what ones I might need to start considering upgrading at the gym. Okay, my last optimization here is a really quick one, but it's something that's actually pretty handy at the gym. When I toggle on an item, super easy to toggle it on, but I have gone through the list and inadvertently clicked one that I didn't want. So now I added a quick thing to this automation that toggles it back off. If it's at 0, it'll toggle it right back off. We can take a look at what this does. This is a button property in the database. And if I hit edit automation, all this does, it says if this page.set, which is the set column, is greater than or equal to 0, this little bit right here, this is a Notion quirk. It took me a little bit to figure out what the syntax would be because nobody's really said it, but blanking things with automations tends to be kind of annoying. And this is the way to do it. So this property, let's back out of here real fast. The set column, if I edit this, you'll notice that it's a number property. The reason I have it set to a number property rather than a text property is because I wanted to show this little ring, and that's how that's configured. You need to use a number property for that. But when you use a number property, it can only accept numeric values in that field. So if I try to type any sort of text, it'll just blank it right out because it's not a number. That logic applies to automations as well. And so when I tried to just insert, if I take this out of here, let me can just quickly show you, I'm going to cut that out. And then if I try to insert just an empty character, you'll notice I get this error. Formula cannot have a return type of unknown. Allowed return type is number. I tried null. I tried a couple other options. None of those seemed to work. So what I did was I just took that value and formatted it. Notion has a function called toNumber. And then all I did was just insert the blank character in that, and then that worked. So that's what allowed me to do it. So what this formula says is if the set column is greater than or equal to 0, empty that property. Otherwise, set it to 0. And so the ultimate end result of that is toggle on off, which is really nice. So if I am at the gym and I inadvertently click one that I didn't want, I can just click that again and it'll toggle it back off. Alrighty, that's all I've got for you today. I know that this was a pretty light video in terms of how much content, but you can get a sense of how my brain works with making tiny changes, solving tiny problems. I love to reduce friction in things by just a little bit here and there. And it gives me, I don't know, I can't even explain the feeling that when I make these little changes, it just makes me happy when I'm at the gym and something is just a little bit easier, or wherever it is. It could be in the kitchen, it could be wherever. And that's the premise of this entire channel, is solving tiny problems. So today's problems were tiny and I think I solved them. Don't forget that if you want my help solving a tiny problem like this, drop a comment below. And if you found something in this video helpful, I would love a like on it. Likes tell YouTube to show my content to you more, and also tell me what types of content you'd like for me to create. So if you found anything helpful in this video, scroll on down and tap the like button. It really helps me out. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.